Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko.
Welcome to another edition of Inside the Firm. I'm your contractor host today, Alex
Contractor
Gore.
host.
Yep, I'm here with subcontractor Lance Cayko.
Sober subcontractor. Sober, sane, and a stable subcontractor, Lance Cayko.
So far.
Today, it's Friday. It's early.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before we go into that, we can't do our jobs without drawings. And the best way to draw something is in a BIM system, BIM computer system. Hopefully you're using Revit. You can use other ones like ARCAD. But if you are using Revit, what you should try to do is mimic construction as much as possible, because that's the end result. And the closer you can get to that, the closer you reduce your feedback loop. The more you reduce your feedback loop, the better that you're going to be, the more errors you're going to eliminate, the faster you're going to progress. That philosophy is one of the base philosophies of Revit Rocket Ship. RevitRocketShip.com is how our firm trains other professionals, students, and staff here at F9. Go to RevitRocketShip.com. Always get great feedback from people in it, so check it out.
The other thing you're going to need to accompany those drawings is possibly specifications. So if you haven't used ARCAD Spec Wizard before, now is the time. Spec Wizard is a patented tool that allows you to specify a product in just 3 steps. That's right. All for free and without registering. That's my favorite part. Step 1, research and find the right products for your project on ARCAD.com. Step 2, use the Spec Wizard tool, again free, to select products and options. Step 3, generate a complete 3-part CSI or CSC specification based on your selections. That's it. Again, Spec Wizard is free to use and requires no registration. Just head on over to arcat.com, that's ARCAT.com today, and try Spec Wizard. You will not be disappointed. Then once you have the drawings, you have the specification.
Whoa.
You might need some products, right? Maybe you specified, hopefully, Pella Luxury. You've never experienced a brand like this before. The collection of brands within the luxury division of Pella are the conversation starters, the pioneers of industry who provide window and door solutions to discerning architects, the building industry, and beyond. They have decades of experience creating things no one else in the world is creating, and the collection of brands are brought together to complement and build on one another. They don't push beyond the limits, they set them. Explore PellaLuxury.com/the firm today. Al Gore.
Awesome. Let's talk The Atlantic, your favorite publication, Lance.
I love The Atlantic. Not really.
Yeah.
We have talked about this a little bit before, and I wanted to get your take on it, Mr. Gore.
Okay.
Because obviously we have staff, and we do not want them to resign.
No.
So the title of this article is "The Great Resignation is Accelerating." And before we get too far here, I want to actually hit the record button on my screen.
While you're doing that, this is a different article from the first one we brought up probably a month ago or more. That it's not just the Great Recession, it's the Great Resignation.
Yep.
Gotcha. So continuation on that.
Yep. So it's really happening. So if you're watching on the YouTube, you will see my screen right now, and it says the Great Resignation is accelerating. A lasting effect of this pandemic will be a revolution in worker expectations. So this was published on October 15th. It is only about 8 days old. We're recording this on October 22nd. Quote, I first noticed that something weird was happening this past spring. In April, the number of workers who quit their job in a single month broke an all-time U.S. record. Economists called it the Great Resignation. But America's quitting spirit was just getting started. In July, even more people left their job. In August, quitters set yet another record. That Great Resignation, it just keeps getting greater. Quits, as the Bureau of Labor Statistics calls them, are rising. That's a terrible term. Are rising in almost every industry. For those in leisure and hospitality especially, That makes sense, right? The workplace must feel like one giant revolving door. Nearly 7% of employees in the accommodations and food services sector left their job in August. That means 1 in 14 hotel clerks, restaurant servers, and barbacks said sayonara in the single month, thanks to several pandemic relief checks, a rent moratorium, and student forgiveness. Everybody, particularly if they're young and have low income, has more freedom to quit jobs they hate and hop to something else. So, the author is recognizing that 3 factors are leading to this. Pandemic relief checks from the government, rent moratorium instituted by the government, and student loan forgiveness, also instituted by the government, is leading to this. So, just like everything the government touches, I feel like it is an artificial. They are creating an artificial situation. It's not an organic situation.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing that I think is compounding. This is my own theory. No one has reported on it, but
He's reporting on it now.
The supply chain issues.
I heard about this.
So I've experienced it. A lot of people think, hey, the pandemic, the major explanation is that there was a lull, no one was buying stuff, and then all of a sudden after the pandemic, everyone's buying stuff. But a lot of people were ordering a lot of stuff through the pandemic. So, but maybe construction. But construction only kind of shut down for a little bit. So that's the major story, right? The secondary story that everyone's probably aware of is like, well, you told everyone to go home. You told everyone to go home, and maybe you told factory people or maybe truck people stayed at home, like people in the supply chain, right? I think it goes deeper than that. I think it's the office workers staying at home that might be causing the problem. And here's why.
Even though they just stated that it was hospitality too is quitting?
Hospitalities, but and I don't mean office workers. I mean office workers of the supply chain. You have Ford plant. You have someone that makes windows, someone that makes anything, and the manufacturing people have to be on the plant, right? But the office workers, we have a computer, we can work at home. Okay, what I learned in anything that's complex, right? I have to be at that job site. I have to go down to the docks. I have to, I have to be there and make decisions and do all that. I think that because what I've heard of people that I know that work at HP and other large companies is, hey, the people that go into the office are doing the work of the people outside the office, right? And people outside the office might be like, no. You probably aren't even aware of the work that's not even getting done, right? Because there's so many times in this office where it's like, someone needs to do this quick thing. I think that there's a disconnect. And that disconnect, especially on a fragile supply chain, can cause massive, massive problems.
Yeah.
And just think about it. You are physically disconnected from other people and the workplace and the job. You think there's no price to that?
Yeah.
You think there's no price to that? I'm not saying it's causing it. I'm just saying I don't think people understood the ramifications of, hey, now I don't have to drive to work. Great. That's great. Hey, now I have more free time and I can work at 7 o'clock. Oh, maybe you're taking too much time off or you're not in communication and timely decisions are now taking 2 weeks instead of 1 day. That compounds.
Yep. So going on a little bit further, and I have a point to this as it relates to you as a fellow business owner or somebody who is in the position of hiring if you are listening to this show and you are one of those folks. The biggest thing is obviously trying to maintain staff and procure that and keep going, right? So the author goes on, as I wrote in the spring, quitting is a concept typically associated with losers and loafers, but this level of quitting is really an expression of optimism that says, we can do better. You may have heard the story that in the golden age of American labor, 20th century workers stayed in one job for 40 years and retired with a gold watch. But that's a total myth. The truth is, people in the 1960s and 70s quit their jobs more often than they have in the past 20 years. And the economy was better off for it. Since the 1980s, Americans have quit less, and many have clung to crappy jobs for fear that safety net wouldn't support them while they looked for a new one. But Americans seem to be done with sticking it out. And they're being rewarded for their lack of patience. Wages for low-income workers are rising at their fastest rate since the Great Recession. The Great Resignation is literally great. So, if you have, here's what one of the things that is going to ensure your success as a business owner is making sure you're taking care of your staff, right? Mm-hmm. You need to take care of them in all different kinds of ways, but the biggest one that we'll cut to the chase here is salaries. So I wanted to talk about the real rate of inflation. I'm switching over to now Peter Schiff. I listen to his podcast every week. I highly recommend, if you're a listener of this show, that you subscribe to Peter Schiff's podcast. He is fantastic, and he tells and what he does. One of my favorite things that he does is he unpacks real rates of inflation, real job numbers. He digs through all of the numbers from the government and tells the truth, basically, right? So, like, the media will get these, the corporate media, the cabal, they'll get the numbers from the government, right? The Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Fed saying what the real rate of inflation is, Secretary of the Treasury, rather. And then he will go into depth and talk about how the media spun it and what what it really is. So if you have these upcoming promotions and reviews with your staff, right, one of the things you're going to be up against is those increased wages and trying to maintain your staff, right? So in one of his recent episodes, what he says is, the headline number was a 5% year-on-year increases in prices, and that hasn't happened since 2008. The expectation for core inflation, factoring out more volatile food and energy prices, was for a gain of 0.4%. That number came in at 0.7%. Year-on-year core CPI was up 3.8%, the biggest increase since 1992, right? Mm-hmm. Going on further, so, he's going through these numbers. If you add up inflation increases through the first 5 months of 2021, it comes to 2.7%. If you annualize the number through the end of the year, the inflation rate would actually be around 6.5%. Peter said the real rate of increase is probably double that. So let me repeat that. The inflation rate would be around 6.5%. Peter said the real rate of increase is probably double that, 13%. So that's what you're probably. So you probably, if you're seeing the headlines come in around from whatever press you're looking at, doesn't matter, AP. If you're seeing it come in around, if they're projecting 5 to 6, just believe me when I say, and Peter, that is you're looking at double digits. So you need, so like if you aren't, if you're in a position of hiring and procuring and keeping people, If you're doing the raises around 5 to 6%, I think you're probably it's almost a pay cut, and it's literally you're subject to the inflation.
Because are you saying, so he says 2.7%? Well, at the end of the year, so he's predicting out the end of the year.
Yeah,
and then saying that
it's probably double that.
No, 6.5. I just don't know how, if half the year right now is 2.7. To then get to 6, the second half of the year would have to be at 9.
Sure. And it might go there, especially as we enter the cold season and we start...
Well, gas.
Gas.
But not just car gas, even though that's high.
And we hit the supply chain issues.
Yep.
So these are all predictions, but just understand that you're up against... I mean, take it for what it's worth.
Yep. But then are you saying the double it is because, like, they don't count things in their index?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just cute. Like... it's just this way. It's like this way. Here's how the Bureau of Labor Statistics always screws around with the actual real unemployment or employment number, and they do this with every single administration. So what they do is, after a certain period of time, people who are unemployed stop looking for jobs and they quit counting them.
Yeah,
those people are still unemployed. They just quit counting them.
Yep.
Because they say, like, oh, we don't count them after this certain duration. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
So if you are looking. If you want to get a little bit more insight in that for this podcast in particular, it is his episode 700, and this was like 2 months ago, or actually in the middle of the summer, but it's one of my favorite episodes that he did over the summer because he was pointing out these statistical anomalies. So it's episode 700. It's called "Surging Inflation is Anything But Transitory." Peter Schiff, check him out. I love that guy. That's what I had. That's what I had about the Atlantic, and I wanted to just bring up. You're going to keep seeing this great resignation, right? We just love these buzzwords.
Yep. That's interesting. April, May, June. So, Lance, if you go to
it.
just do current inflation rate in the U.S. 2021, and then your second one underneath people are, click on that. Scroll down.
There's a chart.
Yep. So he was at June.
Yep.
So that's where he averages. That's the 2.7.
Yep.
Yep. And now it didn't go up to 9 so far, but it still went.
It's trending.
Because he probably saw, sorry for everyone, but he probably saw it like this, and it'll still go up a little bit. But I think he makes a better point than just if you traditionally just listen to what corporate media says.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Unpack it for yourself. You are seeing. Remember, you are actually the reporter. Like people are their own reporters, right? You see actual prices and what's going on the ground. So it's like this. Don't do the mental masturbation. I posted in the Entree Architect community right after I got off the phone with Home Depot this week. I said, James Hardy is done making trim boards, and they are. They're done indefinitely, and it's due to supply chain issues. Somebody said in there, can I see an article? And I go, call your Home Depot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you, just prove me wrong. Call them. If somebody else found a Home Depot in Georgia that was still getting it, man, I would consider hiring freight at this point.
There you go. And then for our listeners, just so you know, the numbers we're bringing up, January inflation was 1.4. Go to April, 4.2. Go to June, that's when the article was.
Yep.
April, that's May. June, 5.4. And then the rest of them, 5.4, 5.3, 5.4.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the numbers.
Yep. Watch those rates. That's
Cool.
where you're at. Another topic that's always good. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah. Speaking of not just managing supply. Oh, wait. This is it. Housing starts.
Yes.
You're going to give us an update on this.
Yes. Yep.
Home building stumbles as supply constraints mount.
Bam, man. It just all ties together, right? It all affects everybody. So I think a lot of people out there think that we're going to see this that there's a housing bubble. I'm not sure it's a bubble in the sense of 2008 and 2009. I've covered this topic with my wife on a previous podcast. If you look at one of the Monday morning episodes, I think it's titled like Colorado Realtor talks about housing bubble. There isn't one. And there isn't one because it literally comes down to basic economic supply and demand. So back to this article. Housing starts fell 1.6 into September. August revised down. Single family starts unchanged. Multifamily drops 5%. That's pretty giant. Building permits tumble. So this is 7.7%. Do you know what a market crash is defined as? Stock market crash. What is when the stock market goes down? Isn't it like when they stop it? Stop.
When they like literally say no one can trade.
Yeah. Stock market crash definition. Perfect. That's what I was looking for. What is a stock market crash? I'm on a different article here, but I wanted to just compare and contrast these two. Let's see. I hope they give me a percentage here pretty quickly. That's what I'm looking for. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. The trigger. Okay. For example, the New York Stock Exchange has set a set of thresholds in place to guard against crashes. Right? They provide trading halts. That's what we were looking for.
Yeah.
In equities and options markets during severe market decline, as measured by a single day decline.
Look at the second bullet point.
Yep. Second bullet point. The triggers have been set by the markets at 3 circuit breaker thresholds: 7% level 1, 13% level 2, and 20% level 3. So that was why I wanted to compare, is because that bullet point, building permits tumble 7.7%. What you're really seeing is a building permit crash. And therefore, how is that going to lead to a real estate crash? What it's going to lead to is, and we've been saying this, a real estate scarcity.
Right, which increases prices, hurts the middle class.
absolutely destroy it. Absolutely hurts the middle class. Yeah, exactly. Because owning a house is the first form of gaining any kind of wealth in this country.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the American dream. Going a little bit further in the article, U.S. home building unexpectedly fell in September, and permits dropped to a one-year low amid acute shortages of raw materials and labor, supporting expectations that economic growth slowed sharply in the third quarter. The report from the Commerce Department on Tuesday also showed the gap between completed houses and those still under construction was the largest record on last month. Robust demand as global economies emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic is running against worker shortages, straining supply chains, and fanning inflation. Nearly every industry in the United States is experiencing shortages. So that's something to consider, especially if you are thinking about investing in real estate. This is not a podcast where we give investment advice. So this is mostly an entertainment podcast. But if all signs are sort of pointing to, man, seems like if you're buying houses for investment purposes, you are making a good decision because they aren't making a lot anymore.
Yes. And they should be. They should be.
We have to be, because if you just Google housing crisis in America, you will see there is a housing crisis in America. Yep. You got it.
The next thing that's hard to manage, besides supply chain and all this other stuff, is the subs that you have for building these houses. And there is the 3S criteria.
Nice. Tell us what those are, Mr. Gore.
Sober, sane, and stable subs.
Yep.
That is what you're looking for?
Right here.
That's why Lance has stopped drinking till the weekend.
No, I might even... I haven't had a beer in 5 days. Lance was not an alcoholic, but Lance also is 38 and is maybe time to go, I don't know, maybe I just have 1 or 2 beers on the weekend and that's my life. Instead of 1 beer at supper.
Yeah.
Feeling great.
Good.
And it's led to me to be sober, sane, and a stable sub.
Well, here, we yet to be proven, because I'll go why into detail.
I could fall off the wagon.
No. Well, yes, but sober, part 1. Part 2 is sane. You can be sane right now. But what happens, Lance, when you're going to a job site and, here's what I expect, and something's slightly different? You were saying the whole time, something's slightly different.
Oh, man.
Are you going to be stable? Are you gonna throw a fuss? Are you going to complain? Or are you going to figure it out?
I suppose that depends on
the mood you're in?
Yeah.
So you're not saying you meet the 3 S's yet?
Not yet. I got to learn how to work a change. Anyways,
it's partly in humor, but partly this is what you're looking for. This is my criteria. If you don't meet these, I got to look somewhere else.
Yeah.
I got to look somewhere else. Just because these affect, it's maybe you could deal with that. Maybe you could deal with an unstable. Maybe Lance, you could, right? Mm-hmm. Can everyone at the job site? When they're...
In other words, how is it affecting everybody else that's on the job site that's working, your other subs? Are your other subs sober, sane, and stable? And is one person going to come in and just wreck up the place? Are they going to be a bull in a china shop?
Exactly. So look out for that. Know that some of these you won't know till later. But if they violate these, it should set a red flag in your head.
But let's define it a little bit more. Sober is an easy one. Just be sober.
Yeah.
Sane. How are they reacting to changes? How do they react to somebody just screwing up their work on accident, or inadvertently they just cover something up and they or cut a pipe or whatever, right? How do they react? And then stable.
Stable should be, you show up on time. You communicate well. You show up when you say that you are.
Yeah.
You are a stable thing, not a sporadic.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. The communication is just giant. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
I think some of the things that we're finding is that some people will communicate very, very fast, but they're the biggest dickheads in the world. And some people will communicate very, very slow, but they're the nicest people in the world. both do quality work.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to find the trifecta. If you found the trifecta, hang on to them. And maybe then you also try to explain to the owners that you're building for at that point that, look, I got you 3 bids. Let's just say for framing, what doesn't matter. I got you 3 bids. The highest one came in, but I prefer this one because I have these 3 sets of criteria. And I think it's justified. Because maybe then you could, what could you tell them further if they go, well, I know, but I have a budget. Could we just, is it work? What's the danger? Maybe they say, what's the danger of going with one of the lower 2 bids?
Cascade effect.
Perfect.
And here's how the cascade effect happens. They're not one of these. All of a sudden, they don't show up when they want to show up, right? When they're supposed to show up. That throws off every other sub.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay? Then let's say they go there and one small thing is not to their particular liking, which you cannot predict everyone's particular liking.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they throw a fit and they leave, or they start yelling or cursing, and then maybe that other sub is there, and maybe it's not a big deal, and all of a sudden they piss off that other sub, and maybe they're making that other sub do something. Now, all of a sudden, that's another not only time delay, now it might be a money delay because of multiple different reasons. And I think, though, we should set the criteria then, and I don't know, maybe you will have a good analogy, if they are these 3 things, but let's say, let's say they're, I don't want to say slow mentally, but just let's say they're sitting there and they really have to talk through the process with you.
Understood.
Yep. And you're like, Jesus, can you just figure this out without me or whatever? Which at some points, this is a decision point. But in the back of my head, it's oh, you aren't doing these other 3 things. I have to put up with this a little bit. Sure. I will happily sit there and listen to you.
But
think
and what Alex just described obviously wasn't on the criteria.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with stability, soberness, and what was
Sanity.
it? Sanity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know if you have another example.
No, that was good. I was exactly what I was hoping to pull out of you.
Yeah.
Mr. Gore.
Do you want to talk to and hear from a sober, sane, and stable reader?
Absolutely. Who's that?
Nick with Nick Reads.
All right.
Hello, best friends. I hope you all had a great week this week. A reading. Each one of us here today will at one time in our lives look upon a loved one who is in need and ask the same question. We are willing to help, Lord. But what, if anything, is needed? For it is true we can seldom help those closest to us. Either we don't know what part of ourselves to give, or, more often than not, the part we have to give is not wanted. And so, it is those we live with and should know who elude us. But we can still love them. We can love completely without complete understanding. Norman MacLean, A River Runs Through It, and Other Stories. Toodles!
What I get from that, too, is one of the workers on the job site has a neck issue. And I just know this just because of jiu-jitsu and all that. But someone might be having a health issue or something else that you don't know about.
Yeah.
And to always judge people right away, you might not know the whole story.
Yeah. Especially in the age of social media, right? I think you gotta, it's almost like when you get a crazy email or phone call from somebody, should you respond immediately or should you maybe just wait 24 hours? Mm-hmm. So should you give a little bit more time for it to marinate and then make a judgment call eventually? Yep.
Sounds good. Should we bring down the crew for A.R.E. Jeopardy?
Let's do it.
Question number 1. A good way to protect building material from battery leaks is it A, a 1/4-inch steel base plate? I'm sorry, an 1/8 inch.
Okay. That was beyond dyslexic.
B, a plywood base. C, battery trays. D, no protection is needed.
I feel like it's just tricky because something is spelled out.
Yeah. Okay, ready? A, C, C, B. Correct answer is C, battery chain.
That was
trays.
easy.
Yep.
That was tricky, though.
So,
Felt tricky.
yes. The only thing about just a regular steel plate, so that battery can corrode steel, right? So you can use steel, but normally you protect it in multiple different ways. But a battery tray is the most simple. Some of them come in stainless steel. A lot of them are plastic. But there you go. Now you know.
I like your shirt, your sweatshirt, Mark.
What
Mark's
does it say?
sweatshirt says, "Don't overthink shit." That's talking to you, architects. Just
Can-
you don't need the article. Call Home Depot. You'll find out about material shortages. My God.
Can you make one that says stack shit on other shit and then say structural engineer on the back?
Okay.
Question 2. Rebar. This is an oldie but a goodie. Oldie but a goodie. All right. Rebar in concrete must be a minimum of how many inches away from exposed earth? So rebar inside of concrete must be a minimum of how many inches from exposed earth? Is it A, 1.5 inches, B, 2 inches, C, 3 inches, D, 6 inches?
Doesn't it depend on the location? Footer versus
Footer.
stem wall? Okay, footer.
Footer. Thank you, Lance.
Clarification, Cayko.
Yeah. A, 1.5 inch, B, 2 inches, C, 3 inches, D, 6 inches. Could be any of them, but it's actually only one of them. So that's the point of the game here. Ready? C, C, B, C. C, 3 inches is correct. Now you know. Yep. That's a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it changes with the walls. Yeah. So, all right, I've got some, I was installing at DOG the bathroom accessories yesterday. So here we go. What is the maximum height that the bottom of a paper towel dispenser can be mounted to comply with ADA rules? Is it A, 36 inches, B, 40 inches, C, 42 inches, or D, 48 inches? Maximum height, bottom of paper towel dispenser, 36, 40. So A, 36, B, 40 inches, C, 42, D, 48 inches. What do we got? We got A, D, C, B. Correct answer is D, 48 inches. To the bottom. Number 4, what is the maximum height that the bottom of a soap dispenser can be mounted to comply with ADA rules? Is it A, 36 inches, B, 40 inches, C, 42 inches, D, 48 inches? Maximum height of the bottom of a soap dispenser. Got to get that soap, son.
Wrote it down.
All right, what do we got? B, C, C, D. Correct answer is D, Bailey rocks. Because, so here's why it works out perfectly in the field too, right? If we have a 48-inch tall wainscoting, bam, you just makes a carpet.
Outlet is like 44 inches, isn't it?
Makes a I don't know, makes a
Well,
carpenter.
yeah, because that's why you got to cut around it.
Yeah,
It's a
it's always
stupid.
like in the middle, or like the center of it is at 48 inches.
makes a carpenter's job, Lance, way easy last night.
Yeah.
Just popped him up there.
It'd be nice
Cranked
too
him
if that's where your blocking was.
You got it, my friend.
How many? 3, 2, 1. How many did you get correct? 2. Jason is our winner. Where are we eating?
Pizza.
Where at? I think Blackjack's is the only one that's open.
That's probably true.
Jason is in charge of ordering pizza at 10 o'clock
Yep.
because everything else opens at 11. Besides Domino's. You want Domino's?
No, trash.
Blackjack's. I want
Just kidding,
some-
Domino's. You can sponsor this podcast.
Yeah, or Blackjack's. Who knows?
We'll take your money.
That's it for me, Lance.
If you like this episode, always try to share it with a friend. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening terrestrially, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. Make sure you subscribe if you're on the YouTube. Smash that like button. We'll see you next week.